Good evening, my name's Lara Hall and this is Amalia Hall. I'm going to be talking to you about some of the challenges and the skills that the competitors will be dealing with over the next 2 nights in the Mozart Quintets. Amalia has her violin here, so she's going to be demonstrating some of the points that I'll be talking about, and I have my viola here too, you'll see why later. So, this is quite a different round from the previous rounds. The musicians are on stage with a number of other performers playing quite a different genre. And this genre, the quintet, requires them to be alert at all times to what is happening on stage musically around the group. They must come into rehearsals with a very clear vision of what they want, but then be prepared to work and come up with a musical product that is acceptable to the whole group. The musicians that they're working with will be very obliging, but still music making, chamber music making is about give and take in the moment to create a performance that is real and touches the audience at that very moment. So hopefully you'll be able to see a musical conversation taking part between the competitor and other members of the group, each group that you hear. These musicians have a difficult task ahead of them. Mozart's music, well, yes, it is technically difficult, not on a level of Paganini though, so the difficulty in this music is the ability to characterise the music and tell a story at any point in the musical journey, portray a number of different musical characters and really understand what Mozart may have been meaning with his music. And they need to be able to do all of this with both wit and finesse. So these quintets are considered by many musicians to be Mozart's greatest chamber works, and Mozart probably loved them somewhat himself too. We have an anecdote passed on to us that Mozart liked to play these quartets with Haydn, the famous Haydn who wrote 80 string quartets and developed the genre. Now I'll move on to talking about the pieces that you're going to hear. Quintet in C major, Kershaw 515, is it's a wonderful work full of exuberance and life and power in that regard. Quite different to its sister work, which was written at the same time, the G minor K516. That one was started once Mozart knew his father was very ill, and we really hear that in the music. So we'll take a look at the first phrase of Mozart's C major quintet to see what might be going on musically. I was playing the cello part, by the way. I brought along the viola as a wonderfully versatile instrument to be able to play a number of parts. So the cello comes in with a forte note, lowest note possible on the cello. And then the line goes right up to C on the violin. So it's actually a really virtuosic passage that goes shooting up to the high register straight away. You know, speed is a really important, probably starting point for making musical choices. If a performer chooses slightly slower tempo, these quavers, cha-cha-cha-cha-cha, will sound really comfortable. Or if slightly faster, probably more on edge and more flyaway. I'll tell you something about this phrase. It has 5 bars in it. Mozart's music didn't normally have 5 bars in it. Did any classical music normally have 5 bars in it? No. usually classical music is written with a 4-bar structure. So the 5 bars catches us off guard. We could give you we'll give you a quick demonstration of 4 bars. We'll just amalgamate it. So you can see it's a nice comfortable phrase with 4 bars. But with 5 bars, it's really extended. Much more ordinary. So the computer can make musical choices right from, well, before even playing, speed and what they want to achieve by this 5-bar phrase. This is a very long movement. Do they just want it to be a long phrase, or do they want it to have a feeling of being not finished? That's up to the computer to decide. Mozart's music is, from start to finish, full of interesting dramatic moments. The very next, we've hardly started this movement when suddenly there's a bars rest, music stops. It's gone on long enough, we know it's in C major. Oh, this is wonderful, happy music, and we're all chuffed to be listening to this exciting start, exciting, vigorous start, but then it suddenly changes. I'll just demonstrate. Okay, so he comes breaking in after a bar's rest. Competitors will need to use timing, the exact placement of when they will come in after rests or after long notes or short notes, or just placing individual notes in order to make musical effects that they are trying to achieve in their head. Yes, they will be playing in time, but in time, 1, 2, 3, 4 actually has a large degree of flexibility. I'll just quickly show you one with Amalia, the second subject, and this is a totally different mood. 4 of the instruments are playing long notes. The first violin is doing a dreamy, beautiful, relaxed melody, and you'll hear how different that is to this first tune. So at this point, the competitor has a chance to show really what contrast they can achieve as a musician. Then Mozart continues on with that same melody, but suddenly there's a sparkling melody on top of it. He does this throughout the movement. He layers on, takes one idea and then layers a different character on top. And so at that point, the musicians are trying to be different. They're not trying to be cohesive. I'll just move on to the second movement of this quintet. We hear subito pianos here, and that means sudden pianos. Mozart is playing tricks. He's wanting us to be slightly surprised. So the first bar starts soft crescendos, and then suddenly soft again. Excuse me, clef confusion. And the trio part, the trio, which is the middle section of a minuetto and trio, is dreamy, and the first violin has to make the music almost sound cadenza-like and thought up in the moment, almost improvised. And this part Amalia is about to play, he changes time signature just to make us even less feeling like we're locked into the groove of 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. He doesn't write it in the music, but music suddenly goes 1, 2, 1, 2. And suddenly, I'm just going to quickly show the different sections that happen in the music, but this happens in every movement. But just a few bars later, we hear an eerie 4 bars. Listen to this. And then suddenly, almost a folk-like tune appears. And the next movement, the Andante, well, it depends actually on the choice of the compositor which order these movements is in. I'll talk about that soon. This Andante is a dialogue between first viola and violin all the way through. First of all, the first violinist needs to play this exquisite melody, and the viola needs to just interject off that, but then after that it's the viola playing the melody, and the skill for the first violinist is taking the musical ideas that the first viola is presenting and adding to them and supporting them and commenting in a way that's absolutely appropriate for what the first viola has just played. And now you'll hear the violinist really commenting. And so forth. So this is a wonderful movement for partnership between first viola and first violin, but I think you couldn't have missed that anyway. Now, the question of order of movements is an interesting one. It was first published with the minuetto in the second place as a second movement. Normally it would be third movement. So some editions assume it was a mistake, but then other editions assume that actually was what Mozart wanted. And more often than not, I think now people think Mozart did really want that minuetto to be in the second movement's place. It's really quite confusing, though, for musicologists in that to make a decision about what really was intended by Mozart, because his manuscript has page numbers on with the minuetto in the traditional place, but it's supposedly not Mozart's hand that wrote those page numbers, so you can't really follow those either. Now, I've already mentioned that Mozart's K516 was written when Mozart knew that his father was ill, and completed a couple of weeks after he died, in fact. And it's a very passionate, sad, dramatic work with an amazing array of heartfelt and varied emotions portrayed. The opening line very quickly just starts diving downwards, and it's like a preview of what we're going to hear emotionally in the whole quintet. should mention that this is all marked piano. It's all it's really quiet and compressed and not at ease at all. Every so often there's an outburst. Followed by something, just. So here's another little snapshot of all the different contrasts that you hear. So we started piano, then went forte for 2 bars, piano for another 3 bars, then back to forte. But in large, this movement is just soft, and it's not allowed, the music is not allowed just to speak naturally, and that gives it an even more ominous feel than what it would otherwise, I feel. Second subject, which is normally a contrasting theme, contrasting musical idea, and in a different key, starts off in the same key, G minor. It's as though Mozart is hammering home the idea that this is a sad, sorrowful, heavy, emotionally heavy work. And it does change to the major and it opens up, but you will hear that the start still has that same angst to it. Hear that dissonance that we finished on? So the music chugs along, then it has a dissonance like that that just punches in the stomach of whoever's listening. The dissonances open up, and the next one is not as painful as that one. Okay, it's friendlier already. And we'll play the next, well, moving along, we'll play the last dissonance, and here the cello is on the lowest note that it can possibly play. Violinist is on a wonderfully high note, and we feel this expanse is like a release from all the oppression that we've heard earlier. The Amadeus Quartet takes a little bit of time before this top note, just so that we really notice that we've arrived somewhere. And I mentioned earlier that timing is going to be something that competitors will use. It's their friend to help achieve the musical result that they're after. So anyway, listen to this particular interval. So suddenly, after all these compressed sounds, wow. The minuetto is an interesting movement. It starts off loud and then is soft after barely a bar, then comes in with a crashing chord on what should be the weakest beat of the bar. So 1 and 3, 4 time, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. Beat 1 should be the loudest beat mostly. And here he 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, all of a sudden. And more happens like that. So utter drama right from the start there. And the trio is absolutely contrasting in character. And then after that, we come to a movement which has an absolute exquisite opening, a homogeneous hymn-like opening. It reminds me of Haydn's string quartet slow movements. But that melody quickly leads on to something that's more and more yearning. You'll hear this. Listen to what happens to this particular figure. Yada, yada. surprise at the end. And the music's full of these wonderful harmonic surprises. Mozart has one section which takes you on an emotional journey, and you think can't possibly be taken any further away from my usual happiness, but then he manages it. So Mozart's an amazing composer there. I'm going to move on just very quickly to the last movement, the last quintet. Cello starts, the last quintet that was chosen by competitors. It's not his last quintet. Cello starts again, just like he did in the cello does in the C major, with a loud first note followed by whimsical, well, three rather whimsical notes, I think, to finish. This movement's marked larghetto. Mozart in his catalogue, though, called it adagio, so that perhaps means that any performer may have a little hint of adagio in the feeling of this introduction. So just so you know, larghetto is considered slower than adagio, but adagio, although it's a slow movement, it's at ease. So the tempo that the competitor picks may well be influenced by how much research they've done into the music, whether they are aware that Mozart did consider this, at least at one point, as an adagio, not a larghetto. So if the competitor chooses a very slow tempo, it's going to sound full of gravity. But if it's faster, probably more whimsical. I'll show you a slightly faster tempo. And then all of a sudden, after a rest, the cello comes punching in again. And that happens 6 times. Mozart does not let the cello give up. Finally, after that, it's time for the allegro. And speed is something that competitors will have to think about in this movement too. Mozart's written this in cut time, which means 2 beats. One thinks of it as 2 beats in a bar rather than 4. So potentially it could go a little bit faster, but have a feeling of larger beats. 1, 2, 3, 4, rather than 1, 2, 3, 4, which is very active. If it's a slower tempo, again, it will sound a little bit more serious or faster, a little bit more playful perhaps. And Mozart is certainly, after a bit of mischievousness in this movement, after just a few bars, he's trying to mess with the musical minds of the audience again by having fortes on the 4th beat of 2 bars in a row, well, anyway, weak beats of a couple of beats in a row, bars in a row, followed by a crashing chord, and which sends the violinist into a cascade of virtuosity. Hear that phrase? Mozart finishes the whole movement with just that phrase. It's a complete shock. He's really having a joke. The last movement of this quintet is again something that has a musicological question mark over it. This time as to the actual notes that should be played. The first edition has a little skippy tune to start with. I'll ask Amalia to play it. And listen though to Amalia play. Can you play it really slowly, please, Amalia? What was originally marked? Well, it's thought that Mozart actually wrote. So just for the first bar, And now listen to what's in the first edition. So that's very different. And it's thought that the publishing house made those changes, but made them throughout the whole movement. And it does mean that the one part at the very end doesn't quite make sense. It will be interesting to hear what decision is made. It may seem that performers really should play what Mozart wrote. Well, yes and no. Yes, it makes sense probably to play notes as closely as possible to what he wrote. However, it was also expected that performers would add a little bit of their own twist on music, embellishments and almost improvisation. So if a competitor does add that interesting Ataria edition version at some point, it may be that they've just decided it's an interesting thing to do. And so, in closing, listen out to the drama that you hear on stage. Drama happening right there before you in real time. That the mark of artistry is to be able to deal with that, create in real time and create in the moment. And it's a wonderful live soap opera going to chamber music concerts and being able to see that actually happening in front of us rather than the CD version where we have no idea really what's happening. Enjoy the competitors and their performances.